You got a list of the witnesses,
Oh.
right?
It's just
Okay.
Q our grade.
Okay, we on, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead on and get the jury in.
I could have Hargrove. Yeah, I feel like you're setting me up.
Okay, we on YouTube. Let the record reflect that we're back in session and calls number 328325. Case of South State of Texas versus Cody James Patterson. Mr. Patterson is present in court with his attorney. Mr. Wright Kim, the state is present, Assistant District Attorney, Attorney Tommy Coleman. Let the record also reflect that the panel is now in the courtroom. State, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Sean.
Defense, are you ready to proceed?
Ready.
At this time, ladies and gentlemen, our court coordinator, Ms. Glenda Secure, is going to call some names. And when she calls your name, you're going to go have a seat in the jury box. And the bailiff is going to give you a tag to place on you. At this time, you're in the hands of Ms. Secure.
Andrew Foster,
Andrew Foster,
Gabriel Graham, John Andrews, Mary Gerald, Matthew Wolf, Brenda Ferris.
right there. Sir, right there. With the black and yellow tag on it. Black and yellow tag at the top. Make sure everyone put on the tags. Yeah, those letters. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I need to administer to you the second of the two oaths that I mentioned earlier. I need each and every one of you to raise your right hand. And after I finish administering, oath, please say I do. Do you and each of you do solemnly swear or affirm that in the case of State of Texas versus Cody James Patterson, you will a true verdict render according to the law and the evidence, so help you God? Please say I do. Okay, you may put your hand down. Members of the jury, I will give you some instructions and a general idea of what to expect in this case. Every case is composed of facts and the law as it applies to the particular case. The facts come from the witnesses on the witness stand. The law comes from the statutes, codes, and court decisions interpreting them and how they are applied, how they may apply to this case. You and I have equal authority in this case, but it is divided authority. You are the sole judges of the facts, and I am the sole judge of the law. You are the sole judges of the credibility of witnesses and the weight to be given their testimony. You may believe all of what a witness says, part of what a witness says, or none of what a witness says. As the trial progresses, the attorneys will probably make objections to questions asked by the other attorney of witnesses. or objections to the introduction of documents or objects. This means in the objecting attorney's opinion, there is a legal reason why the testimony or document or object should not be received by you. Sometimes I will simply sustain or overrule the objection. At other times, it may require a lengthy discussion outside of your presence. If that happens, I will either ask you to step down for a few minutes or ask the attorneys to come up to the bench so that you can hear the discussion on the point of law. The reason for this, as I told you earlier, you are the sole judges of the facts you received, and I am the sole judge of the law. I can't be with you in the jury room when you deliberate the facts. Therefore, you can't be present or within hearing when I deliberate questions of law. The reason why I will sometimes ask you to step down is because it is simply the most efficient way to do it. Otherwise, if we were to leave the courtroom, the court reporter would have to gather her equipment and take it with her, and the attorneys would have to gather their files, etc. The ruling I do make on questions of law in your presence are not evidence, and you are to disregard them. After all the evidence is in, and both the state and the defendant have rested their cases, the court will prepare and submit to you a written charge instructing you on the law in this case. We will then hear oral arguments from the attorneys. The attorneys have the right to make a summation of the evidence and to make reasonable deductions from the evidence. Since the state has the burden of proof, it has the right to open and close the summation or argument. Until you retire to deliberate, do not discuss this case amongst yourselves, and under no circumstances should you permit anyone to discuss the case with you. Do not attempt to learn from any source outside of the courtroom anything about the facts of the case, nor attempt any independent investigation on your own. Don't visit the scene involved in the facts of the case. Don't read any reports in the newspaper or watch TV reports about the case. Do not make up your mind about this case until all the evidence is in and you have been instructed on the law. Don't take notes during the progress of the trial. Don't visit other courts during a break if a trial or other proceeding is in progress. The bailiff has given to you badges. Please wear those badges at all times. Ladies and gentlemen of the panel, those of you who were not selected to sit on this jury, on behalf of the citizens of Jefferson County, I'd like to thank you for taking your time to come out here today. Also, bear in mind that your presence here today was very important because it helped this court to administer justice in a fair way. Our bailiff have letters for you. He will give letters to you. So at this point, you will be excused. Is the district clerk? I think the district clerk office is still open. And so if you need any excuse, the bailiff can show you where the district clerk's office is, and they can get any excuse that you need. Again, on behalf of citizens of Jefferson County, I'd like to thank you for taking time out from your busy schedule. Normally, I will give you a handshake, but under the circumstances, I will give everyone an air handshake. And each and every one of you have a blessed day. Please follow the bailiff. And if you desire to sit around to watch the trial, you can do so. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, state, are you ready?
Yes, Your Honor, state your name.
Defense, are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have the defendants please stand, and Mr. Colburn, would you please read the information?
In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas comes now the undersigned Assistant Criminal District Attorney of Jefferson County, Texas, on behalf of the state of Texas and present in and to the County Court at Law of Jefferson County, Texas, that in Jefferson County, Texas, Cody James Patterson, hereafter styled defendant, heretofore on or about October the 3rd of 2020, did then and there operate a motor vehicle in a public place in Jefferson County, Texas, while the said defendant was intoxicated. And it is further presented that in to said court that at the time of performing an analysis of a specimen of the defendant's blood, the analysis showed an alcohol concentration level of 0.15 or more against the peace and dignity of the state.
Mr. Patterson, how did you plead, guilty or not guilty? You may have a seat. Mr. Coleman, would you like to make an opening statement?
Briefly, Your Honor.
Okay, you may proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen, this will be a short trial, and likewise, my opening remarks will be a short trial, a short remark to you as well. I anticipate there will only be 2 witnesses in this case. I anticipate that we will wrap up tomorrow at some time. I anticipate that the evidence will show a number of things. I anticipate the evidence will show that on October the 3rd of 2020, around 8:22 p.m., then Trooper Kimberly Hargrove received a dispatch. And the dispatch indicated there was going to be 2 vehicle accident, and that accident occurring on State Highway 73 and England Road. I believe that she will testify that she made her way to that location and that she encountered and observed 2 wrecked vehicles, a number of witnesses, and she observed the defendant, Cody James Patterson, there on scene. She will testify that upon encountering Mr. Patterson, she noticed an odor of alcohol on his breath, that he had slurred speech, and his eyes were red and bloodshot. She will also testify that he would admit to drinking vodka, and then she would find an empty vodka bottle nearby. She will also testify that she conducted a DWI investigation, and part of that investigation, she asked for consent that he allow medical professionals to draw a specimen of his blood. She'll testify that that specimen of blood was sent to the Houston Crime Lab, where it was analyzed, and it was determined that his blood was above the legal limit of 0.8. 0.8. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That it was above 0.8. And in fact, the blood alcohol was 0.3. With blood alcohol level. And I believe, based on that evidence, that you will render a verdict, the only verdict that the evidence can speak to me, and that's the verdict of finding this defendant guilty of the offense of driving while intoxicated. Thank you.
Mr. Kimberly, would you like to make an open statement, like to reserve?
Just
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the case, the judge is going to instruct you that the comments of the attorneys aren't evidence. So what Mr. Coleman's recited to you isn't actually evidence. It's his expectation of what the evidence is going to be. So anything that either Mr. Coleman or myself say regarding the facts are not evidence and shouldn't be considered by you as such. Also, any statements that either of us make regarding what the law is not binding on you. The law comes from the judge, and again, the judge instructs you that anything that the attorneys say regarding what the law is should be disregarded. It's not binding, is what the judge said. In any case, look forward to presenting the case to you and for your deliberation.
Mr. Coleman, are you ready to present your
The state's ready to proceed. At this time, the state will call Kimberly Hargrove.
Kimberly Hargrove? Ms. Hargrove, would you please come forward? Ms. Hargrove, would you please raise your right hand? Ms. Hargrove, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Ms. Hargrove, you may take a seat in the witness chair. And
May I proceed, Your Honor?
yes, you may proceed. You can turn the podium, face the witness.
Good afternoon, Special Agent Hargrove. It's Special Agent. Formerly Trooper Hargrove.
Yes, sir.
Could you please state your full name for the court report?
Kimberly Carter.
And how are you employed?
I'm employed by the Texas Department of Public Safety.
And let me get you to do me a favor and speak up or speak more directly into the mic. I want to make sure everybody in the jury is hearing what you have to say. And how long have you been with DPS?
I did 10 years in January.
And your duties with DPS, what do they include?
Currently, my duties as a peace officer are, I'm assigned to the organized crime division. So I investigate drug trafficking organizations, gangs, human trafficking, and other organized crime.
And you mentioned being a certified peace officer, so you are licensed by the state of Texas as a certified peace officer.
That's correct.
And your training and background, what does that include?
I began with education. I received a bachelor's, associate of science, bachelor's of science, and master's of science in criminal justice, leadership and management from San Jose State University.
Have any specialized training?
I do. I went to the DPS Academy, which is 6 months to receive your training to become a peace officer. I then, after that, I received training and became a standardized field sobriety test instructor, a drug recognition expert, an advanced crash reconstructionist, and I was also a field training officer and a licensed instructor to teach others.
And speaking of being a drug recognition expert or a DRE, is there something special or an event that you are obligated to attend tomorrow as it relates to being a DRE?
Yes, I actually have a drug recognition expert recertification for
And that, what part of the state will that be?
Humboldt.
You have to be there for that.
Correct.
I'll take you back to October the 3rd of 2020. What were your duties with DPS back on that day?
At the time, I was assigned to the Highway Patrol Division of the Texas Department of Public Safety. I was a corporal, and I was assigned to patrol both traffic enforcement and crash investigations.
And were you in fact on patrol that day?
I was.
Were you in uniform
I was.
in a marked patrol unit?
Yes.
At around 8:22 p.m., what, if any, dispatch did you receive?
I received a dispatch from our being the DPS's communications, our dispatch to a 2-vehicle crash.
Was the location given?
It was
And what location was it?
State Highway 73 at England Road.
Is State Highway 73 at England Road? Is that in Jefferson County, Texas?
It is.
What was, well, let me ask this. What did you do in response to receiving that dispatch?
I traveled to the crash.
And what, if any, observations did you make once you arrived? Well, let's back up. What type of a roadway is State Highway 73? 2-lane, 4-lane, highway, what kind of roadway?
So it's divided with a grassy median in between. It's both east and westbound, and it's 2 lanes on each side.
Does it have places or portions where a person could either make a U-turn or make a left or right turn?
They have crossovers.
Crossovers. Is that considered, that portion of Highway 73, State Highway 73 and England Road, is that open to the general public?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so considered to be a public road.
Correct.
Now, you made your way to the site of the reported crash. What, if anything, did you initially observe?
I observed 2 vehicles, both with damage.
And the damage, was it consistent with a motor vehicle accident?
Yes,
And did you were there any individuals on the scene?
yes, there were. There were 2 individuals that were considered witnesses, but they didn't actually witness the crash. They showed up afterwards. And then there was the individual that was driving there's drivers for both of the vehicles.
Now, without going into what was said by the other individuals on scene, because that would be hearsay, did you visit with those individuals? Did you talk with, make contact with those individuals?
I did.
And did you ultimately, let me ask you this, So there were at least two other individuals who were on scene other than, let me try this, ask it this way. Did you identify the drivers of the two vehicles?
I did.
And one of the drivers of the vehicle, did they admit to you, or did both drivers admit to you that they were driving?
I would object to the extent that the escalated predicate of when any purported admission against interest occurred after the defendant was in custody and prior to being Mirandized. So I'm going to object to the extent that the question seeks information that the state hasn't limited to pre-custodial statements of the defendant before they lay the predicate for custodial interrogation and use Miranda.
I think I can rephrase my question, Judge, and that's the way to address.
Okay, well, I'll sustain his objection. You can rephrase your question.
Did you begin an investigation? with your rights?
I did.
And as part of the investigation, did you talk to those individuals on the scene?
I did.
And in your training and experience, is it necessary to temporarily detain individuals while you conduct your investigation?
Yes.
In this instance, were these individuals that you talked to, were they temporarily detained for the purpose of you conducting your investigation?
Yeah.
Now, as part of that investigation and temporary detention, did you identify the drivers of both vehicles?
I did.
And did one of the individuals self-admit to driving a 2004 GMC Yukon?
Yes.
Do you see, well, who did that person tell you his identity was, the driver of the Yukon?
Cody Patterson.
And did you, at some point later on, confirm that identity of Cody James Patterson?
I did.
And did you see the individual here in the courtroom today who self-identified himself as Cody James Patterson?
I do.
Could you please point to him and identify him by an article of clothing that he is wearing?
I'm sure. Let me, I'm sure.
Yeah, all right, as to the record reflect that the witnesses identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect.
As part of this investigation, and as part of the defendant admitting, well, let me get this out of the way, is a 2004 GMC Yukon, is that considered a motor vehicle?
It is.
Part of that investigation, did you, well, what was the condition of the vehicles? What kind of condition were they in?
They both had damage. The GMC Yukon had damage to its right back quarter. And the other vehicle involved was a white SUV, had damage to its front distributed.
Any major injuries that you can discern?
I observed physical injuries on Mr. Patterson.
Did anybody require medical attention?
They did.
But no fatalities?
Correct.
Where was Mr. Patterson as it relates to the position of the vehicles?
He was outside his vehicle on the ground, seated, kind of near the vehicle, seated near the tree line.
And did you make contact with Mr. Patterson?
I did.
And what, if any, observations did you initially make as it relates to Mr. Patterson's appearance or as it relates to Mr. Patterson?
Initially, I smelled a strong odor of alcoholic beverage. I observed multiple injuries on Mr. Patterson. I observed some blood on Mr. Patterson. And I noticed Mr. Patterson have red bloodshot eyes.
Any observations as it relates to his speech?
As I began to talk to Mr. Patterson, he had occasional slurred speech that I would pick up on every once in a while.
What, if anything, did you observe, or any items did you observe in the immediate area?
I observed a clear McCormick vodka bottle near Mr. Patterson.
Did Mr. Patterson make any admissions as it relates to whether or not he consumed any alcohol that evening?
He did.
Again, Your Honor, I object to the lack of temporal limitation placed in the state's question that he hasn't qualified that by stating that it was pre-custodial or post-custodial with the Miranda predicate being laid.
I think I can rephrase the question.
Okay, I'll sustain his objection. You can rephrase your question.
While you were conducting your initial investigation and while this suspect was temporarily detained, Did you ask him a number of questions to further that investigation?
I did.
And one of those questions, did you ask him how much, or if he consumed any alcohol?
I did.
And what was his response?
He stated he had.
And did he give you an amount?
Initially, he stated approximately 4 shots.
Did he give you the type of alcohol?
Vodka.
And again, you found an empty bottle of vodka there in the vicinity.
Correct.
Did you ask him about that vodka, that empty vodka bottle, if it belonged to him?
I did.
And what was his response?
He said it did.
Now, after speaking to the witnesses, after speaking to the defendant, did you make a determination as to the nature of the accident? What happened as far as the way this accident happened?
Yes, I determined that Mr. Patterson failed to yield the right way, striking the other vehicle.
Now, as part of any DWI investigation, are there certain tests or evaluation that is ordinarily performed?
Yes, there's a standardized field spray test.
And, briefly, what is the standardized field sobriety? Well, who certifies the standardized field sobriety test or the SFSTs?
The National Highway Safety Traffic Administration.
And in this case, well, and briefly for the jury, what do these SFSTs consist of?
It consists of the horizontal gaze nystagmus, the walk and turn, and the one leg stand.
Horizontal gaze nystagmus, to those who aren't familiar with it, does it have to do with examining the eyes or evaluating the eyes of a suspect?
Yes,
And the walk and turn, briefly, what does that entail?
it's a divided attention test.
Will you give them some instructions and you observe how they perform on that particular physical test?
Yes, sir.
And then, what's the third test?
The one leg stand.
The one that's similarly, it's a divided attention test, designed for you to perform, evaluate the performance of
Yes, sir.
the test. Were you able to perform the SFST on this occasion?
Partially.
What, if any, standardized field sobriety test did you perform on this?
The horizontal gaze nystagmus.
What are you looking for, when you perform the horizontal gaze nystagmus or the HGN test?
I'm looking for the involuntary jerk of the eye.
And why is that, notable?
Because, so we've got 3 different tests. Did you want me to explain them?
Well, I guess I'm going to, let me ask you this way. Is involuntary jerking of the eye ordinarily observable by the naked eye, by another person?
Under the influence of alcohol or a depressant or social anesthetic.
So just to be clear, I'm clear. So you can't ordinarily observe the involuntary jerking of someone else's eyeball.
No,
Okay. And for it to be observed by another person, what is that indicative of?
they're under the influence of a CNS depressant, an inhalant, or a dissociative anesthetic.
And did you make that evaluation or the HGN, perform the HGN evaluation on this defendant?
I did,
And where was that done?
at the Riceland Hospital in Vinny.
So the defendant was transferred from the scene by what method?
By ambulance.
And he arrived at the Riceland Hospital.
Correct.
While he was there, you performed this evaluation, part of the standardized field sobriety test called the HGN.
Correct.
Now, as part of these standardized field sobriety tests, are you looking for certain things?
Oh, yeah.
Are they referred to as clues?
Yes, sir.
What are the clues as it relates to HGN?
There's lack of smooth pursuit, distinct and sustained nystagmus at maximum deviation, and onset of nystagmus prior to 45 degrees.
Again, this is all calculated as far as, or centered around looking for that involuntary jerking of the alcohol.
Correct.
And what, if any, clues did you observe in this defendant when you performed that analysis on him?
I observed all 3 of those clues.
Would that be indicative of in your training and experience?
Intoxication.
Now, You testified that you were unable to do the other physical evaluation, the one leg stand, the walk and turn. But did you perform any other analysis of the defendant's pupils or eyes?
Checked to make sure he had equal pupil size, prior to conducting the horizontal gaze nystagmus. And I also checked to make sure he did not have resting nystagmus.
And that's part of that is to make sure he's an appropriate candidate for this, right?
Correct.
Because unequal pupil size, what could that be an indicator of?
A head injury.
But is it your testimony that his pupils were equal in size?
Correct.
And tracking, not being able to track, what could that be indicative of?
If he was unable to track, the stimulus, which is my finger, then he would, be indicative of also a head injury or some other kind of, brain injury or something.
But there was equal pupil size in this case, and there was equal tracking.
Correct.
What about the vertical gaze nystagmus?
It's an additional, portion of the test, and you go vertically rather than horizontally. Also looking for the involuntary jerk of the eye.
Did you perform vertical gaze nystagmus on this defendant?
I did.
And what, if any, observations did you make?
He did have vertical gaze nystagmus.
Now, HGN or horizontal gaze nystagmus, vertical gaze nystagmus, I mean, these examinations or evaluations have they been around for some time?
Yeah.
Have you found them to be a reliable investigatory tool?
I have.
Have you found them in your training experience to be a good indicator of intoxication?
I have.
Now, did you ask the defendant whether or not he would agree to submit a specimen of his blood?
He did.
For what purpose?
So after the horizontal gaze nystagmus was completed, I was unable to complete the walk and turn leg stand due to visible physical injuries that he had. And so based on the signs of intoxication I've observed from both the horizontal gaze nystagmus and other signs of intoxication, I made the determination that he was intoxicated. At that point, I asked him for a specimen of his blood.
And what was his response?
Consent.
And what did you do next to further the extraction of the defendant's blood? What is used in the process of obtaining a blood specimen?
At that point, I get a nurse to come. I've got a box. Got two tubes inside. They're empty. Besides they got preservative in it. And at that point, I had the nurse draw the blood from Mr. Patterson.
And the nurse drew the blood there in your presence.
Correct.
And once the blood was drawn, what, if any, action did you take as it relates to identifying and preserving and sealing those specimens of the defendant's blood?
At that point, I sealed the tubes with a it's a seal, like sticker, I guess you put over the top of the tube. And then I secured the tubes back in the plastic containers that they come in. I then secured the tubes back in the box, and then I sealed the box with this red seal in front of the nurse so she could observe, and be sealed.
Now, what kind of information do you add, if any, to the outside of those blood vials?
So on the label, the seal, you put, I put my name, I sign my name. I put a date, the date of the date that the blood was drawn. I put the time the blood was drawn, and I put the nurse that the blood was drawn by.
And what happens with those specimens of blood? And I say specimens because there's two vials, right?
That's correct.
What happens with those specimens after they're drawn? You label them and you put the security seal tape on them. What happens with them?
At that point, I transported it to our Beaumont Highway Patrol office in Jefferson County. I secured the blood evidence in our temporary evidence locker. It's a secured locker. And then the next day, I sent it to the Houston, Texas Department of Public Safety, Houston Crime Lab to be analyzed.
What did you bring with you here today?
Blood specimen.
And is it the blood specimen from, that you drew from Cody James Patterson back on October the 3rd of 2020?
It is.
And how do you know?
It's came with the paperwork that I filled out and applied to the box.
It had, what
It's
again,
got the seal and everything with his name on it.
with those identifiers that you put on the outside of it? Do you put anything else on there other than his name or any other identifying information?
When I seal it with integrity seal, I just put my name on it and then I initial both the sides of the tape to show that it hasn't been lifted or the seal hasn't broken or anything like that.
And I guess it goes without saying, why, what's the purpose of sending it to the crime lab?
To be analyzed, so to receive a blood alcohol concentration.
And to your knowledge, was the specimen taken from Mr. Patterson and analyzed by the crime lab?
It was,
With a determination made?
yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Special Agent Hargrove, I am handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit A. What is this?
It's the blood evidence.
And is it the blood evidence that you have been testifying about that was taken from Mr. Patterson back on October the 3rd, 2020?
Yes,
What is that?
it's my initials.
You place your initials, do you make it a habit to place your initials on these specimens?
I do.
What's the purpose of that?
So if you can't, so you can prove that the tape wasn't lifted, it wasn't, nobody like got into the box.
And whose name is that?
Not my thing.
Now, obviously, I'll offer this at a later time, Judge, but obviously the specimen needs to be, or the packaging needs to be opened by the folks here.
Right.
But from your initials, from your name and all the other indicators on that package, I mean, because there's more indicators in there, the address and they got the on the package.
Yes, sir. It's got the address of the crime lab, it's got the phone number for the crime lab, and then it's got my information at the top. The normal mailing return.
And so from all those indicators, is there any reason that for you to believe that that's anything other than the specimen, blood specimen that you submitted to the lab that you do from this defendant, or that was drawn from this defendant back on October the 3rd of 2020?
No, sir.
Now, when you're on patrol, well, back in October of 2020, was your patrol car equipped with any recording equipment?
It was.
And that recording equipment, did it capture your response to the scene where you encountered Mr. Patterson that day?
It did.
And was it functioning properly as far as you know?
It was.
And the operator of that equipment yourself, were you capable of properly operating that recording equipment?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Judge. Yeah, approach.
Yes.
Now that I'm already here. Judge, I'm sorry, I meant to mark states 1 and I marked it states A. Do you want me to keep with the states A, B, C, or just change?
No, you can.
Can I change it to
You can
states
correct
1?
it, but it's not, it hadn't been offered.
Okay. No objection.
Yeah, it hadn't been offered.
I made an error, Agent Hargrove. I marked this packaging with the specimen, blood specimen that you've been testifying to as state's exhibit, letter A. And I should have marked it as state's exhibit number 1. For purposes of the record, I am relabeling what I refer to as state's A as state's exhibit number 1. I'm also handing you what's been labeled as state's exhibit number 2. What is that?
It's a DVD of, crash scene footage.
Is it from the crash scene footage on October the 3rd of 2020 when you encountered the defendant?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you reviewed this patrol car footage?
I have.
Is it fair and accurate with no alterations or deletions as far as you can tell?
Yes.
When did you last review
So I entered, there's multiple footage, so that particular footage, after the DWI took place.
it? Did you review it today?
No.
You didn't review the patrol car video today? Not well, this is the patrol car. Not today?
No,
What about having any body camera recording equipment on you?
I had a, watch guard body camera on my person.
Now, was that operational back on October the 3rd of 2020?
It was,
And did that capture the encounter between you and your defendant?
it did.
Was that the equipment fairly operating properly and the operator of that equipment yourself, were you capable of properly operating that equipment?
Yes.
May I approach you?
Yes, you may.
I'm showing you what I'm marking as state's exhibit number 3. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
This is, the DVD of the body camera footage.
And did you review that today?
I did.
And is this a fair and accurate copy or rendition of your interaction in response to the scene on October the 3rd of 2020?
It is.
No alterations, no deletions?
No.
In addition to the patrol car video, in addition to the body camera video, were photographs taken?
Yes, sir.
Photographs of the scene?
Yes, sir.
And who took those photographs?
I did.
When were those photographs taken?
They were taken while I was conducting the roadside crash investigation.
I'm showing you what's been marked as state's exhibit number 4. You recognize that?
Yes, sir. CD containing pictures that I took.
That day.
Yes, sir.
And have you reviewed this compact disc with the photos?
Yes, sir.
And are they fair and accurate depictions of the individuals and the objects as they appeared back on October the 3rd of 2020? No alterations, no deletions?
No, sir.
So at this time, the state would offer state's exhibits 3 and 4, and for purposes of the record, I'm changing to the defense counsel. What is this state?
The state's not offering 2 at this time.
No, 2 or 1. I'm not offering either one. Right.
Now, briefly on board item,
Yes, you may.
stage 4 doesn't contain any audio. This is still pictures.
Correct,
Stage 3 contains audio, is that right?
correct.
From your body cam? Who are on, what voices are recorded on stage?
Mr. Go back to one.
I'm sorry. What, do you know the voices of just you and Mr. Patterson on stage 3, or are there other voices? In there?
There are other ones.
Your Honor, I have an objection to make. I'd like to approach.
Oh, let me do this here. Ladies and gentlemen, jury, would you please step outside into the hallway, follow the bailiff? Okay, we're gonna have a hearing outside the presence of the jury. Oh, y'all need to stand up when the jury come in.
Yeah.
Okay. Let the record reflect that the court is back in session and cause number 328-325. Case of style of state of Texas versus Cody James Patterson. Let the record reflect that Mr. Patterson is present with his attorney. Mr. Wright Kimler, state is present with Assistant District Attorney, Attorney Tommy Coleman, and Attorney Lamar Johnson. And let the record also reflect that the jury is present in the courtroom. Mr. Coleman, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Coleman, you may proceed.
Yeah, at this time, I'd like to publish State's Exhibit number 4, the compact disc that the witness testified to. It contains the scene, the photos from the scene.
No objection.
Okay, you may publish it.
Special Agent Hargrove, what are we looking at? What are we looking at here?
That's the GMC Yukon involved in the crash.
And is this another view of the Yukon?
Yes, sir.
Yes, could we get the last?
Mr. Bailey?
Another shot.
Yes, sir.
Let me go back to that. For the record, how would you characterize that damage to that vehicle?
Can you?
I mean, as far as extensive, light,
I would say it's.
hard to see. Here. Another shot of the Yukon.
Yes, sir.
What are we looking at here?
That's the other vehicle involved in the crash.
Another shot of that vehicle.
Yes, sir.
How would you characterize the damage, the extent of the damage to that vehicle?
Extensive.
Published State's Exhibit number 3, the body cam video,
As agreed, Your Honor.
as agreed.
Okay, you may publish it.
Ladies and gentlemen, what does this scene depict here?
It's the inside of my patrol unit.
And it's the angle, what angle are we looking at as far as where the camera's positioned?
Yes, sir. It's, to the right of my steering wheel. The camera is positioned on my, chest.
Court Commissioner, I'd like to fast forward to the next relevant portion of the.
You may go.
And for the record, Judge, as agreed, we are publishing certain portions of this video without the sound.
Okay.
Special Agent Argo, what's going on here?
I just, arrived on the scene of the crash, and I exited my patrol unit. I'm gathering flashlight. Contacts.
What's going on now?
I'm speaking to the deputy on the scene as well as the driver of the other vehicle involved.
Yeah, I'd like to fast forward to the next.
Okay.
You're making your way over to an individual who appears to be on the ground. Who is that individual?
That's Mr. Patterson on the ground.
Really, my brother's passed through I guess I went across the
Are you his brother? Okay, you live on the side?
and then
This is the record, Judge. I'm advancing it to about 10 minutes and 10 seconds into the video.
Do what now?
When was the last alcohol beverage you drank?
It's probably around, to the time of right now,
I don't know, you tell me, about what time you think it is.
it's probably around 2 o'clock to 2:30 today.
You think the last drink was at 2:30 PM?
Yeah, about 3 o'clock.
Okay,
Later than that,
and how many shots sold do you have?
probably 4
4 shots of what?
vodka.
What kind of vodka?
More
McCormick? Okay.
He says, he gives you the type of vodka, correct?
Correct.
In your training and experience, investigating DWIs, is it common for suspects or defendants to minimize the amount that they consume?
Yes, sir.
For purposes of the record, I'm advancing the video to about 12 minutes and 14 seconds.
Right there in the grass, McCormick vodka bottle, Benji, is that yours? I appreciate you being honest.
What just happened there?
So at that point, I asked him if you can see my flashlights on a bottle, it's McCormick vodka, empty bottle. I asked him, Mr. Patterson, if that was his, and he stated it was.
I think that's all the state will publish with the stack of question.
Yes, you may.
Special Agent, did you also ask whether or not the defendant consumed alcohol after the crash?
I did.
And what was his response?
He stated no.
Did you form an opinion about whether or not an offense or offenses have been committed that evening?
I did.
And what was that opinion?
I formed an opinion that the, Mr. Patterson was intoxicated, and also physical mental factors.
And did you arrest what was that loss of his faculties due to in your investigation, in your opinion?
Due to the presence of alcohol.
And, did you arrest the defendant that evening?
I did.
Well, actually, no, was he arrested that evening?
He was arrested, but he was released to the
Oh.
hospital, for treatment of his multiple physical injuries.
Did you have any other involvement in this case? Let me ask you this way. Did you prepare a report?
I did.
And when did you prepare that report when the events that happened were still fresh in your mind?
Yes, sir.
And did you review that report prior to testifying today?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did it help to refresh your recollection about the events?
I did.
I mean, because this happened, nearly 2 years ago. And do you remember each and every detail about each and every encounter or investigation that you performed? Does it help to refresh your recollection by reviewing your report?
Yes, sir.
And is that what happened in this case?
Yes, sir.
Pass it.
Mr. Kimler? You may proceed.
Close to evening instead of afternoon, so good evening. I say Hargrove, you described your training and experience as a DPS trooper and as a special agent. I understand part of that involves accident reconstruction or accident investigation, is that right?
Yes, sir.
What kind of training do you have in that regard?
I've gone through levels 1 through 5, and accident reconstruction.
Being most advanced.
Right.
If you mind, turn around, you'll see a notepad behind you. If you could rough out just what you, like a diagram of the schematic of how the accident was when you appeared there, the position of the vehicles and the roads.
Harper.
Here's a green one if you want. Good, big, so yeah. Again, once you establish equal tracking, what's the next thing? to do?
Then you do the lack of smooth pursuit.
Lack of smoothness. And what if you observe a lack of smoothness
I observed involuntary jerk of that.
in each other?
Yes,
So that's 2 clues, 1 for each other.
that's
right?
correct.
What was that?
Next, it's the distinct and sustained from stagnant maximum deviation.
And in short, what does that mean? You got your finger all the way out, he's looking over all the way out the finger and you can see the eye.
Yes, sir.
Sure, correct?
Yes, sir.
Observe that.
So, white.
Right, observe that in each other. Another 2 clues. So now we're up to 4.
Yes.
What's the last part of the HG?
The onset of nystagmus prior to 45 degrees.
Okay, and what does that mean?
So basically, they're. Well, so you'll start at the beginning position and you'll start moving slowly out to the 45-degree position. You stop at the point that you see the nystagmus,
Prior to the maximum deviation.
prior to 45 degrees.
Okay, so 45 degrees may not be maximum.
Right, it depends on their body width.
All right, now, and again, you observe clues, both of them, right? And now we're up to 6, right?
Right.
Isn't it accurate that HGN test is an indication of the presence of alcohol in the body? It indicates the presence of alcohol in the body?
Yes, I have to be careful what I say, like, it's depressant, inhalant, or dissociative anesthetic, so it's, but he's under the influence of one of those.
Right. Well, that is present in his body, right?
Right.
Is it possible for some people to have alcohol in their body and not be legally intoxicated and still have nystagmus? In other words, they have alcohol present in their body, it just hasn't risen to the level of intoxication and have nystagmus, as you indicated?
Can you repeat that question?
That the HGN test is not on its own establishing intoxication, it simply is an indication, a positive indication of the presence of alcohol in someone's system.
I'm a little bit confused about the way. that you're-
All right, let me give you an example. Let's say somebody is a 0.07 under the legal limit, right? Can they have nystagmus?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're not necessarily intoxicated if they have nystagmus on its own, correct?
I can't answer that like yes or no, because there's not a yes or no question. Sorry.
Yes or no, is the HGN test on its own enough to establish intoxication?
Yes,
Oh, okay. So by itself, you can rely on the HGN test to establish intoxication.
Been asked and answered, Judge.
with other
Well,
signs of intoxication,
With other signs of intoxication,
make a determination.
right, it's a totality of the circumstances.
Yes,
Let's say the matter of signs, if you had a training, just because somebody has nystagmus in the HGN test, doesn't mean that they're intoxicated. It means that there's alcohol present. You can safely say there's alcohol present in the body.
yes,
Now, normally you would have proceeded with the other 2 tests, right?
correct.
But you testified that that was impossible because of Mr. Patterson's physical condition, correct?
Correct,
At that time, after you concluded the HGN test, was he placed under arrest?
yes.
And then what happens after somebody is placed under arrest or what do you do? What forms are read? What happens?
So I read him what's called a DIC 24 statutory warning.
And what does that consist of?
Basically says that he's under arrest, and it explains a whole lot more, but it says that he's under arrest and that and explains why.
Mhm.
And then I'm given the option to ask him for a specimen of his breath and or blood.
What also told in this DIC? What is he advised, told, and asked in this DIC?
May I read it?
Yeah, sure, feel free. And this is a standard form, right, that every arrestee gets.
You're under arrest for an offense arising out of acts alleged to have been committed while you're operating a motor vehicle in a public place or a watercraft while intoxicated, or an offense under section 106.041 alcohol beverage code. You'll be asked to give a specimen of your breath and or blood. The specimen will be analyzed to determine the alcohol concentration or the presence of controlled substance, drug, dangerous drug, or other substance in your body. If you refuse to give the specimen, that refusal may be admissible in subsequent prosecution. Your license, permit, or privilege to operate a motor vehicle will be suspended or denied for not less than 180 days, whether or not you're subsequently prosecuted for this offense. If you refuse to submit to taking a specimen, the officer may apply for a warrant authorizing the specimen taken from you. If you're 21 years of age or older and submit to taking a specimen, an analysis of the specimen shows you have an alcohol concentration of 0.08 or more, your license, permit, or privilege to operate a motor vehicle will be suspended or denied for not less than 90 days, whether or not you're subsequently prosecuted for this offense. If you're younger than 21 years of age and have any detectable amount of alcohol in your system, your license, permit, or privilege to operate a motor vehicle will be suspended or denied for not less than 60 days. However, if you submit to taking a specimen and an analysis specimen shows you an alcohol concentration of less than 0.08, you may be subject to criminal penalties less severe than those provided for under chapter 49 penal code. If you're operating a motor vehicle and you refuse to give a specimen or provide a specimen that shows you an alcohol concentration of 0.08 or more, you may be disqualified from driving a commercial motor vehicle for a period not less than 1 year. You may request a hearing on suspension or denial. This request must be received by Texas Department of Public Safety at its headquarters in Austin, Texas, no later than 15 days after you receive or presume to receive notice of suspension or denial. The request can be made by written demand, fax, or other form described by the department. I certify that I've informed you both orally and writing of the consequences of refusing to submit to taking a specimen, providing a specimen. I've provided you the complete and true copy of the statutory warning. I'm now requesting a specimen of your, and then you say, and I said blood.
And Mr. Patterson signed, it, correct?
So he did not sign this because we only sign it if you refuse, but he did sign a consent form.
Okay. So that's a lot of information, right? I mean, we can agree.
Yes.
A lot of information, important decisions are going to be made by the person that is having this read to them, right?
It's an important decision.
Sure. And when you're reading this information to them and asking a person, whether it's Mr. Patterson or anybody else, to make that decision, it's important that they understand, correct? And then base their decision on a full understanding of what the magnitude of the circumstances are and all of the factors that go into making a coherent, correct decision, right?
Right.
So when you're reading this to Mr. Patterson and expecting him to make a decision, you're presuming that he has normal mental functioning, right? I mean, that's the presumption.
I'm presuming that if you had any questions, you would ask.
Would you be doing all this, reading all this to him, asking for consent without presuming that he had normal mental functioning to make the decision?
We do it either way.
What do you mean, what?
Yeah, normal, normal, well, I don't know what verbiage you use, but normal, or if he was not, he was not coherent, he was sleeping or whatever.
Well, if he was,
Read it either way.
if he's comatose, you would read it to him?
Even if he was able to answer.
In this particular situation, you'd agree with me that the state, and state, I mean you and the district attorney, the state, the government, right, is relying upon Mr. Patterson's consent in order for the blood test to be admissible, right?
I don't have to rely on it. He has the right to refuse, and he was told that.
I'm talking about in this case, right? There wasn't any warrant
In this case, no, there's nothing.
because one.
It's a consent.
So your predicate for making this an admissible blood test in this case, I say you're the state, the government, is that Mr. Patterson consented, right?
Yes, sir.
What is consent? Just in general, what is consent?
It's agreeing to, in this case, blood draw.
Okay, you're agreeing, and what does your agreement have to be based on?
Your own decision.
Yeah, an understanding, a free choice, correct? If somebody's intoxicated, are they capable of making a free choice?
Believe so.
So let's say a woman is intoxicated and the question is, does she consent to sexual intercourse? Is that relevant that she was intoxicated, whether that's voluntary consent or effective consent that she was intoxicated?
Because my objection here is that you're asking this witness to make a legal determination about involuntary and informed consent, and that is not, that is beyond the purview of this witness.
I don't believe it is, Your Honor. It's just cross-examination. I'm asking about consent, how that affects whether or not he was intoxicated. In fact, that the state presumed that he had the cognitive mental abilities to provide effective consent, and how that affects the jury's determination of whether, that on the other hand, they're saying he was intoxicated.
He used the legal terminology, effective consent, Judge, that it calls for a legal determination by a witness who is not a legal, an attorney.
Objection sustained. You may move on.
He had enough mental ability to consent, in your opinion, is that right?
Yes.
He had his normal use of his mental functioning wasn't so impaired by the introduction of alcohol, a drug or a dangerous drug as to render his consent what, ineffective, involuntary, in your opinion?
No.
So now we go to the blood draw itself, right?
So after I read the DIC 24, which is what I just read to everyone, I actually presented him with a piece of paper that he had to sign to.
And he signed. And then what happened?
And that's the blood draw.
You remember it? And again, you can refresh your recollection if you don't, but you have a clear recollection of what happened.
Yes.
What are the statutory requirements for a valid blood?
That's gotta be a paramedic, nurse, registered nurse.
Proper personnel, right? And who is that? Who can draw blood?
Qualified technician, a paramedic, a registered nurse, and just a nurse actually.
Liability in,
Licensed. Licensed nurse, registered nurse.
phlebotomist,
Phlebotomist.
who else?
I believe
Got it? Okay. Who else?
physician.
Mhm.
I could read the rest. Can't recall off the top of the rest.
You have the rest there, can you read it? Yeah, sure.
Leave it in. Physician, qualified technician, registered professional nurse, licensed vocational nurse, licensed or certified emergency medical technician.
So phlebotomist is on there. I guess that could be a technician though. Anyway, so it's important that the person drawing the blood is qualified under the statute, is that correct?
Correct.
And did you witness the person who did the actual blood draw?
I did.
And what are you basing your conclusion on, that that person that did the blood draw is qualified under the statute that you just read to actually administer the blood?
Prior to taking the blood, I asked for her title.
And what was her name?
May I?
Mhm, sure.
It was Deanna Martin,
And what did she tell you?
that she's a registered nurse.
Now, assuming that it was a qualified person to administer the test, what procedures do they have to follow in order for the test to be done?
So they can't, clean the injection, or not injection site, but the, area where they're taking the blood. They can't clean that with alcohol,
These iodine,
iodine or chemical cleanse. It's just something other than something alcohol.
Okay.
Contaminates.
what else?
They've got to,
It's gotta be a clean place, all that stuff.
Yeah.
All that was by the book, correct?
Correct.
No alcohol swabs.
no alcohol.
She'd have tried that, you'd have stopped her and said, no, we need to.
I asked beforehand and I watched her do it.
Now, you have a,
Yes, sir.
you and I believe all other city law enforcement officers are provided with these DWI kits, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And has this been opened or what's the status of that? Call?
So it was opened upon being tested.
Well, right now, what's the status?
Right now, it's reclosed.
Okay. Have you looked at the contents of the box recently?
no.
When's the last time you looked? So you don't know what's in there? You open it up, John, you can state object open, I don't know.
No objection, Judge.
Yeah. Or to do that with PCP balls. No, I'm not. And let the record reflect the witnesses breaking the red evidence seal on the dates of the
Right, so reflect.
actually the red and green seal.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. All right, you've opened State's Exhibit 1. What are the contents of State's Exhibit 1?
It has two plastic vial cases, I guess you call them. They're sealed by a blue cap that's screwed on.
Can I approach you?
Yes, you.
That's fine. Are your initials anywhere on either one of these?
They are on
Actually.
the actual vial seal.
Were these two exterior cases part of the kit?
They were,
Just looking at those two vials, can you say if those are the ones that apply to Mr. Patterson's case?
looking from the exterior, no, but I will have to open it up and
Can you go ahead and do that? Now, there's two of them, correct? There were two blood draws,
well, same blood draw, but it's two
two vials.
vials.
Now, are there any identifying markers on the two vials that you extracted from the two cases?
Yes, there are two seals, one on each. One seal is still intact. The other seal has been opened or cut.
Reached.
Yeah, that's good. And the identifying markers would be the subject's name, my signature, the nurse's name that took the sample, her title, date, and time.
We'll take a look at the ones that's been breached. And does this have your initials on
Just got my name, my signature.
it? Okay,
Full signature, but yes.
okay, does this appear to be the sample that was taken from Mr. Patterson on the date that he was arrested?
Yes, sir.
Now, sir,
You can just leave it right there.
okay. Once the, you can put them back together. Now, each of those vials contains another substance, doesn't it? Before the blood's introduced into it.
Yes.
What is that substance?
It's a coagulant, it's basically a preservative, it prevents the blood from clotting.
So anticoagulant.
Yes,
So it contains an anticoagulant powder, is that right?
that's correct.
Do you know the name of the chemical name of it, or just an anticoagulant?
I don't know.
What's the procedure once the blood is introduced into the vial with the anticoagulant? Is there a prescribed procedure that you're supposed to follow?
Yes, the nurse will turn it over, multiple times, so the preservative or the powder kind of dissolves or not dissolves, but breaks up in the blood.
Okay, and you don't do that, the nurse does. And did you observe the nurse on this occasion to follow that procedure?
I did.
With both vials, right?
Yes,
Okay. Once she did that, did she return the vials to you?
she did.
And then what did you do?
I placed the seal over the top of the vial, and then I placed the vials in each of these containers. And then I placed the containers in the box and I sealed it in front of the nurse with this red integrity seal.
And then what did you do?
At that point, fast forward, I take it to, the highway patrol office in Beaumont. I secure it.
Did you secure it?
Did I
You
secure it?
remember doing that?
100%. It's, in a locked temporary evidence locker. And then, once, then the next day I removed it and, it was sent to, the Houston Crime Laboratory.
Is the evidence locker refrigerated?
It's not
How was it sent to the DPS crime lab in Houston?
via USPS certified mail.
US Postal Service?
Sure.
Certified.
Yes.
And you don't know how the specimen was maintained while it was in custody of the US Postal Service?
You know,
Whether it was exposed to the extremities of heat or cold or anything like that? You know, any possible effects on the integrity of the test that any exposure to extremes in temperature could have on the sample?
extreme heat or this extreme cold could have a, I'm not sure what though.
It could affect the accuracy of the test, is that right? Or do you know? You don't know, that's
I
fine.
feel like it, yeah, it might have to be asked to the.
Okay.
analysts.
Do you know if it's put in the refrigerator when it gets to the DPS lab in Houston?
Don't know.
And then, but once you put it in the evidence locker, are you the one that mailed it or did somebody else?
I don't know.
After you mailed it, the next time you saw it was to Vancouver, is that right?
I received a,
Green card.
yeah, return that signed for from the crime lab that they received it. And then at that point, the next time I saw it.
So you're not familiar with the chain of custody then between the time you put it in the mail and the time it appeared, is that right?
Other than the green card I received.
Going back though again, the relevance of the blood alcohol content. And that's the difference between a class A misdemeanor and a class B misdemeanor. Right,
Level,
so that's an important number, correct?
yes, sir.
And that blood alcohol content, the relevant number isn't at the time that it was tested. It's relevant, or at the time of the drawn, I should say. But what Mr. Patterson's blood alcohol was when he was operating the vehicle.
Sorry, can you,
What's against the law isn't having a blood alcohol content above the legal limit 2 hours after operating the vehicle, 3 hours or however far after. It's what it was when he was operating the vehicle.
that's correct.
And you don't know how long it was between him operating the vehicle and the time that the blood was actually drawn.
I do know that.
Okay,
Sorry, I. So he was operating, the crash occurred at. The crash occurred at 8:22 p.m. The blood was drawn at. 10:28 p.m.
about 2 hours. Okay. I'm almost done. Now, approach me.
Oh, prosecutor.
Do you would agree with me that the fact that if the information charges in this case that the blood alcohol content of the defendant was 0.15 or more, but it was at the time the analysis was performed, that doesn't matter, does I mean, that's not what's against the law. It's not what it was when the analysis was performed, it's what it was when it was operating. Yeah.
That's correct.
So to the extent that the state is seeking to enhance this from a B to an A based upon what the results of the blood test was at the time the analysis, or at the time of the analysis, that's not accurate, is it?
Objection, Judge, that's outside the purview of this witness. Charging decisions made by the district attorney's office or have no bearing on this witness's sphere of knowledge whatsoever.
Let me rephrase it. The relevant inquiry is what his blood alcohol was at the time he was operating the vehicle, not at the time the analysis occurred. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, to the extent that the analysis may shed some light on what it was at the time that he was driving, that will be relevant. Is that right?
That's correct.
But it would have to be charged correctly in the information to allege that it's above a 0.15.
Objection, same objection. He's asking this witness, soliciting testimony from this witness about charging decisions made by the district attorney's office.
I'll withdraw it.
Objection sustained.
I'll pass it with.
You're gonna be brief, if I may, I know the hours. Special agent, the introduction of alcohol into the body, does that affect reaction time? Could that have contributed diminished reaction time? Could that have contributed to this accident? Was it through any fault of your own that you were unable to conduct the remaining two components of the standardized skill sobriety test, the one leg stand and walking turn? It was because of the accident, isn't that fair to say? And again, the accident could have been caused by a diminished reaction time.
Right.
In your training experience, it could have been attributed to the introduction of alcohol, correct?
That's correct.
Your decision to arrest the defendant was not just based solely on the HGN, correct?
That's correct.
Is it fair to say your decision was based on the totality of circumstances?
That's correct.
And those totalities included not only the accident that happened, correct?
Correct.
But the observations you made of the defendant, including his slurred speech, odor of alcohol, bloodshot eyes.
Yeah.
What about the admissions that he made? He made certain admissions, correct?
Yes.
And he admitted to drinking, correct? And not only did he admit to drinking, you found a bottle bearing the type and
Objection, lady.
what did, I'll rephrase it.
Okay, objection sustained.
What, if anything, did you find that would have corroborated that admission?
The bottle of vodka that said it was.
I want to clear up something. Defense counsel mentioned that your performance of the HGN or horizontal gaze and stagnance would be found on that video that we played. Is that true?
Yes, the body cam.
Were there more than one disc containing your body camera footage? I want to be clear here. I don't want to mislead the jury.
Yes, so there was the one that was on scene. And then there's body camera footage from when I arrived at the hospital and I made contact with Mr. Hudson.
Now, and we could review it if necessary, but if you recall, there was the scene video and then there was the hospital video. Right, those are two separate discs, two separate videos, right?
I'm sorry?
Two separate discs, two separate videos,
That's
right?
correct.
Okay. And the HGN portion would have been on the disc.
Objection, lady.
Which
Objection sustained.
I will rephrase, Judge. Where would which disc or which recording would your performance of the HGN be on?
It would be on the disc at the hospital.
Informed consent, implied consent, nevertheless, you asked for the defendant's consent indicated to draw the video. So are you tasked with, or have you been trained to discern whether or not, if consent is given, whether or not it's implied or whether or not it's effective? Are you required to make that determination?
Consent is consent. He verbally gave it to me and wrote it down.
Can a person have the loss of their normal use of physical and mental faculties, and in your experience, still be capable of making and giving consent?
Yes.
Did you secure and store the blood specimen in accordance with the way that you were trained?
Did,
Did your training in any way necessitate that you refrigerate the specimen?
not,
Did your training in any way prohibit you from utilizing the United States Postal Service and forwarding it to the lab? Is there any indication that other than or but for the analysis performed by the crime lab of the blood specimen, that blood specimen had been in any way tampered with or otherwise compromised?
it did not.
Thanks, Special Agent. I know you've got a long day ahead of you with the test, with your training tomorrow, and which is part of the only ran late, but thank you. Appreciate it. And, have a safe travel. Pass it with you, Judge.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Shirley? Okay, Special Agent Hargrove, you may step down. Does the, is she free to go?
Yeah, I don't have any objection to her being excused.
Really? Stay, okay, free to go? Have a safe trip.
Just leave this.
Yes. Yeah, put it, he said, put it back together. Mr. Porter. Thank you, any other witnesses today?
Next day, Judge.
Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this will conclude your services today. We need everyone to come back tomorrow at 1:30. Okay, make sure you have a seat outside in the hall. Available, come here. Okay. You may be excused. Everyone, please stand while the jury has support. Make sure that you wear your badges. You may be excused.